Hey guys, it's Adam. Today I'm going to show you how to make shrimp pasta with a garlic butter sauce. Now, I love this recipe for two reasons. One, it doesn't make many dishes, and two, it doesn't require much effort or ingredients. Alright, so let's get started. First, you'll need one medium-sized saucepan, one medium-sized frying pan, 1 to 2 servings of pasta and shrimp. Now, for shrimp, I like to think that one serving is about 5 pieces. You'll need half a head of garlic, 2 tablespoons of butter, a chef's knife, a spatula, some salt, pepper, a cutting board, and finally, a container to hold some water in. To begin, take your container and fill it up about 3/4 of the way full with lukewarm water. And then you're going to take your shrimp and put the shrimp in the water. This will help to defrost them because currently my shrimp are still frozen. So we're going to start first with getting our butter ready. I'm going to cut 2 tablespoons off individually and set those aside for later. Now I'm going to take the garlic, crush it with my palms to open it up, and pull out half of the head. For this piece it was about 4 pieces of garlic, 4 garlic cloves. To peel them, you want to cut the rough ends off, and from there you can work your fingers into the skin and separate the garlic from the garlic skin. Now, once you have all your garlic peeled, you want to make sure to separate and get rid of all of the rough outer layer. If any of this gets into your dish, you'll definitely notice it. Now you're going to want to chop up the garlic. Now, I'm not a professional chef by any means, and my knife skills are severely lacking. So what I like to do is just give it a rough chop at first, and then run my knife back and forth through it until I find the consistency that I like. This is about the consistency that I like, so I'm going to go ahead and set it aside. Now you want to make sure to scrape all the garlic off the knife. This is going to be the flavoring to your pasta sauce, so you want to make sure you get it all. Now we're going to head over to the stove where we prep our area for cooking. First, you're going to take the pot and fill it up about halfway with water. This is where you cook your pasta, so you want to make sure to salt the pasta water. I give it 1 or 2 good pinches every time. I'm going to set the temperature on this pot to about a medium-low temperature. Not trying to boil it, just trying to get it warm. Next, you're going to set the fry pan on the other large burner and put half of your butter into it. Again, setting it to about a medium-low temperature. You just want to soften the butter and warm the water first. Alright, so now let's peel our shrimp. On one side, I have my shrimp in warm water that are now defrosted, and on the other side, I have my plate with 2 paper towels on top. Now, you don't want to put this shrimp on your cutting board because it's currently raw. And whenever you deal with raw seafood or meat, you have to make sure that you don't cross-contaminate anything. That's why I like to have a separate plate. The shrimp I use for this recipe are large, easy peel shrimp with the shell still on. Basically, how you peel them is starting at the top, run your hands under the shell on either side, pull the shell down by the tail, and grabbing the tail, slowly pull the shrimp out of the tail. You want to pull the tails off because there's a lot of meat in them that you don't get if you just leave the tails on. Now, I just finished peeling all the shrimp. Notice I put the shells back in the water because it makes them easier to dispose of. Drain the water and then dump the shells into a small bag. I usually like to use an old grocery bag. Then do yourself a favor and take this outside. Throw it away if you can. These things will stink if you leave them in your trash for any period of time. Alright, now we go back to the stove. Make sure to wash your hands after dealing with the raw shrimp. I like to turn the temperature on the pot up to about medium-high, and the pan I like to leave still at about medium-low. I'd rather cook the shrimp low and slow and not overcook them than try and cook them faster and risk making them rubbery. Now, even though I preheated my pan, the butter is still not ready. Good tip though is if you cut it up, the more surface area there is, the faster it'll melt. Alright, after the pan has a good coating of butter on the bottom, I'll dump the shrimp in, trying not to touch them. Just to be safe though, I'll wash my hands one more time. And also, now, in goes the pasta into the boiling water. Taking a fork, I give it a quick stir just to make sure that nothing sticks to the bottom. And now we wait. Really, this dish just takes some time to cook, especially because we're cooking the shrimp on low heat. But just because it takes some time doesn't mean you can go away. Keep an eye on your pot to make sure it doesn't boil over, and keep an eye on your shrimp to make sure that you don't overcook them. So it's been about 5 minutes, and I start to see some pink going around on the bottoms of the shrimps. Now this is when I'm going to go ahead and flip them. But before I flip them, I'll take one and pull it over just to see what the bottom looks like. Taking a look with your eyes is the best way to tell if they're ready to be flipped or not. Now, if you can see, my pot with the pasta in it is starting to boil over. Now, my stove is very difficult to cool down when it gets to this stage. So a tip that I found is if your pot won't stop boiling over, pouring a little bit of cold water in it will really help stop that. And now I'm going to check and see if my pasta is done. Honestly, the best way to do this is to just pull out a piece and taste it. If it tastes good and done to you, then it's done. This one still tastes a little bit raw to me, so I'm going to leave it on for a couple more minutes. Now taking a look at the bottom of the shrimp, starting to look pink and done to me. The key to tell when shrimp are done is that they're no longer opaque in the center. I took one of the shrimps and cut it in half just to make sure that they're cooked all the way through, and these are done. I'm going ahead and picking these out individually, setting them on my cutting board. You don't just want to dump them out because the butter that's left in the bottom of the pan is going to be the base for our sauce. After you have them all picked out, throw your other tablespoon of butter in along with your garlic and set it back on the stove. Don't change the temperature because we're going to cook the garlic just like we cooked the shrimp, low and slow. After putting the garlic back on the stove, I'm going to take my shrimp and cut each one in half. I feel like this makes the bites more manageable and also helps you get more shrimp and pasta in a bite instead of just shrimp or pasta. One thing I forgot to mention in the beginning is if you have a strainer, it's super useful. I just dumped my pasta into the strainer and I'm going to leave it in the sink for a couple minutes to cool down and drain off. Finally, we go back to the stove, where my garlic has been cooking in the butter for just a couple minutes now. You really have to make sure that when cooking with butter, you don't let your pan get too hot and you don't let the butter to sit too long. Otherwise, it can burn, and burnt butter is really nasty. So be sure to keep an eye on your pan, stirring your garlic every minute or so to keep it from burning and the butter from burning. Just like all the steps before, the best way to tell if your garlic is done is just by tasting it. If you think it needs a little bit longer, it probably does. Just leave it in the pan. From the way it tastes, I think mine's done. So I'm going to go ahead and add my shrimp back into the mix along with my pasta. Be sure to give it a good mix with your spatula and get that garlic, the butter, the shrimp, and the pasta all incorporated. Finally, plate and serve. I added some fresh ground pepper on top. And there you have it, an easy weeknight meal that only takes 4 ingredients.